One minute, I'm running from a gang of squid-faced thugs with knives, clutching a bottle of glowing booze, thinking I've hit rock bottom. The next, I'm crashing an alien wedding, accidentally married to a red-skinned warrior goddess with a tail that won't stop groping me. And her dad wants me dead. How did I go from a smuggler dodging debt to fighting fire-breathing monsters with a wife who's hotter than the lava pits of Rylothar? Stick around, because this wild ride's just getting started. And trust me, you won't believe what happens next. I crashed an alien wedding, and now my wife wants to probe me. Jake Slippery Malone had a talent for getting into trouble. It wasn't something he planned. It just happened like gravity pulling him into the nearest mess. Tonight, that mess was on Zarkan Verge, a sprawling space station floating in the ass end of the galaxy. Picture a giant metal donut stuffed with shady merchants, drunk mercenaries, and aliens who'd sell their own tentacles for a quick buck. Jake loved it here. The chaos suited him. He was a small-time smuggler with big dreams, a half-empty bottle of stellar moonshine in his hand, and a grin that said he'd just cheated death, or at least a few pissed-off gamblers. He'd been running for his life through the station's neon-lit corridors, dodging a gang of squid-faced thugs he'd conned in a card game. "It's not my fault they didn't know aces were wild," he muttered, ducking under a flickering sign advertising tentacle massages cheap. His boots skidded on the grimy floor as he rounded a corner, the shouts of his pursuers echoing behind him. His plan? Find a dark hole to hide in, finish his drink, and wait for the heat to die down. Simple. Foolproof. Except Jake wasn't good at foolproof. He spotted a doorway up ahead, big, fancy, glowing with soft purple light. It looked like a storage room or maybe a bar with free snacks. Perfect. He stumbled through, clutching his bottle like a lifeline, and crashed right into the middle of something he definitely wasn't prepared for. The room was no bar. It was a hall decked out in shimmering fabrics, floating lanterns, and a crowd of red-skinned aliens with curved ears and long, whip-like tails sprouting from their backsides. They all turned to stare at him, their golden eyes wide with shock. Jake froze. A wrong room. Before he could back out, a loud voice boomed from the front of the hall. "The Chosen has arrived." An old alien with a patchy beard and one blind eye, Throgar, as Jake would later learn, raised his arms like Jake was some kind of hero. The crowd erupted into cheers, their tails swishing in excitement. Jake blinked, his brain still fuzzy from the moonshine. Chosen for what? Free food? I'm in. That's when he saw her, standing on a raised platform, surrounded by flowers that pulsed with light, was the most striking woman, or alien, he'd ever laid eyes on. Zara Klythea. She was tall, nearly 6'3", with skin the color of a ripe red apple, shimmering under the glow of the lanterns. Her ears curved gracefully, like crescent moons, twitching slightly as she glared at him. And that tail, long, slender, and curling around her waist like a living belt, made Jake's head spin. She wore a tight outfit that hugged every curve, leaving little to the imagination, and her golden eyes burned with a mix of fury and disbelief. "You," she hissed, her voice sharp enough to cut steel. "What are you doing here?" Jake raised his bottle, grinning like an idiot. "Hey, gorgeous. Just looking for a snack. Maybe a dance. You got any chicken wings around here?" Zara's tail snapped against the floor with a loud crack. "This is my wedding, you brainless oaf, and you just ruined it." "Wedding?" Jake's grin faltered. He looked around. Flowers, chanting elders, a big ceremonial altar with a bowl of glowing goo. "Oh, shit." Before he could bolt, two burly Rylothians grabbed his arms, their tails wrapping around his wrists like handcuffs. No, wait." Jake yelped, struggling. "I'm not the marrying type. I've got debts, a shitty ship, and I'm allergic to commitment." Throgar stepped forward, his blind eye glinting with glee. "Too late, outsider. You've spilled the essence of unity." He pointed to the altar, where Jake's clumsy entrance had knocked over a bowl of shimmering liquid. The stuff had splashed all over him, and Zara, it soaked into his jacket, his skin, and apparently hers too, because her red face turned an even deeper shade of crimson. "Essence of what now?" Jake asked, shaking his wet sleeve. Zara stomped toward him, her tail flicking dangerously close to his face. It's a sacred bonding oil, you idiot. It links two souls forever. And now, thanks to you, I'm stuck with a stumbling drunk who smells like cheap booze. Jake sniffed himself. Hey, Stellar Moonshine's not cheap. Well, not that cheap. He paused, processing her words. Wait, stuck? Like married stuck? Yes, Zara snapped, crossing her arms. Her tail twitched, brushing against his leg by accident. Jake jumped, a weird tingle shooting up his spine. The essence binds us. Physically, emotionally, permanently. Permanently, Jake's voice hit a pitch he didn't know he could reach. I didn't sign up for this. I just wanted to hide from some squid guys. Throgar chuckled, clapping Jake on the shoulder. The stars have spoken, boy. You got a fine bride. Look at that tail. Strong enough to choke a man, soft enough to, well, you'll find out. He winked, and Jake's stomach flipped. Zara groaned, rubbing her temples. This is a disaster. I was supposed to marry a Rylothian warlord, not a what even are you? Human, Jake said, puffing out his chest a little. Name's Jake Malone. Smuggler, gambler, and apparently a new husband. Surprise. Her tail lashed out, smacking his thigh hard. Ow! Jake yelped, rubbing the spot. What was that for? For existing, Zara muttered. But then something weird happened. Her tail brushed against him again, slower this time, almost like it had a mind of its own. Jake felt a warm buzz in his chest, like the essence was doing something freaky. He glanced at Zara and caught her staring at him, specifically at his soaked shirt, which was clinging to his scrawny frame. Are you okay there, wifey? Jake asked, smirking. You're looking at me like I'm dinner. Zara's eyes narrowed, but her cheeks darkened. Don't flatter yourself. The essence is messing with me. That's all. Messing how? Jake leaned closer, curious. Before she could answer, her tail flicked up and grazed his backside, making him jump again. Whoa, lady, buy me a drink first. It's not me, Zara snapped, grabbing her tail with both hands to stop it. The essence links us. I feel things. Your things. It's disgusting. Jake's eyebrows shot up. Wait, you're saying you can feel my... Shut up, she barked, her tail slipping free and whacking his arm. The crowd cheered louder, clearly loving the chaos. Throgar raised his hands again. The bond is sealed. To the wedding chamber. Wedding chamber. Jake's voice cracked. Hold on, I need to talk to my lawyer, or at least my bartender. But the Rylothians didn't care. They hoisted him up, Zara glaring daggers beside him, and marched them off to whatever madness came next. Jake clutched his bottle, muttering, I've survived bounty hunters, space storms, and that one time I ate mystery meat from a dumpster. I can handle this, right? He wasn't so sure. The Rylothians carried Jake like he was some kind of trophy, their red hands gripping his arms while their tails swished in rhythm. Zara marched beside him, her own tail flicking like an angry cat's, her golden eyes locked forward as if she could glare her way out of this mess. The hall buzzed with excitement. Aliens chanting in a language Jake didn't understand, though his translator implant caught bits like blessed union and strong seed. He really hoped that last one was a metaphor. Where are we going? Jake asked, his voice bouncing as the crowd jostled him. His bottle of stellar moonshine dangled from his fingers, half empty and glowing faintly in the dim light. To the bonding chamber, Zara said through gritted teeth. Her tail snapped against the floor again, loud enough to make Jake flinch. It's tradition. The newly bonded must connect. Connect. Jake's mind raced. Like, shake hands? High five? 'Cause I'm great at high fives. Ask anyone. Zara shot him a look that could melt steel. No, you fool. It's a private ritual to solidify the essence of unity. And I'd rather wrestle a flame claw than connect with you. Jake gulped. Okay, cool. So we just skip it, right? Tell him we're good. I got a ship. Well, half a ship. And we can just... Silence. Throgar barked, hobbling up beside them. His one good eye twinkled with mischief. The chamber's ready, boy. You'll love it. Soft bed, warm air, a little mood lighting. Perfect for a human like you to impress your bride. He waggled his bushy eyebrows, and Jake's stomach did a flip. Impress. Jake muttered, I can barely impress myself most days. They reached a massive arched doorway, carved with swirling symbols that pulsed faintly. The doors slid open with a hiss, revealing a room straight out of a sci-fi romance flick. The bonding chamber was round, walls shimmering like liquid metal, with a giant circular bed piled high, with cushions. Floating orbs cast a soft red glow, and a faint hum filled the air, like the ship itself was purring. Jake's jaw dropped. "This is fancy." Zara stormed inside, her tail whipping behind her. "Get in here, human, before I drag you." Jake stumbled after her, still clutching his bottle. The doors slammed shut, locking with a loud clank. He spun around, banging on the metal. "Hey, let me out. I've got rights. Human rights. Somewhere." "They can't hear you," Zara said, crossing her arms. She stood by the bed, her red skin glowing in the light, her tail curling around her leg like it was sizing him up. "We're stuck until the ritual's done." Jake turned, leaning against the door. "Ritual? What kind of ritual? 'Cause if it involves blood or chanting, I'm out." I faint at the sight of needles. Zara rolled her eyes. "It's not blood, you coward. The essence needs us to touch. Physically, to sync our bond. Touch." Jake's eyebrows shot up. He took a swig of moonshine for courage, the liquid burning his throat. "Like a hug? I can hug. I'm a pro hugger." "Not a hug," she snapped. Her tail flicked toward him, brushing his knee. That weird tingle hit again, stronger this time, shooting straight to his chest. He stumbled back, nearly dropping the bottle. "Whoa, did you feel that?" "Yes," Zara muttered, her voice tight. She grabbed her tail, holding it still. "It's the essence. It's linking us. I can feel your stupid heartbeat. And your smell. You reek of that garbage you're drinking." Jake sniffed his armpit. "It's not garbage. It's premium garbage." He paused, squinting at her. "Wait, you're saying you can feel me? Like inside?" "Unfortunately," she said, her cheeks darkening. "And you're about to feel me too. So sit down and stop making this worse." Jake hesitated, then plopped onto the edge of the bed. The cushions sank under him, way too comfy for the panic he was feeling. "Okay, fine. Let's touch, or whatever. But no funny business, all right? I'm a gentleman. Mostly." Zara snorted, sitting across from him. "A gentleman? You crashed my wedding, spilled sacred oil, and now I'm married to a walking disaster. Spare me your charm." "Hey, I've got charm," Jake protested. "I once talked a bounty hunter out of spacing me with just a smile and a bad joke." Her tail twitched, brushing his leg again. This time, the tingle hit harder, like a warm buzz spreading through him. He yelped, scooting back. "Okay, seriously, what's with the tail? It's got a mind of its own." "It does," Zara admitted, glaring at it. "Rylothian tails react to emotions. And thanks to the essence, it's reacting to you." Jake stared at the tail as it curled toward him, slow and deliberate. "Reacting how? 'Cause it's giving me bedroom eyes right now." "Shut up," she growled, but her tail didn't listen. It slid up his thigh, light as a feather, and Jake's breath hitched. "Hey, tell it to buy me dinner first." Zara lunged, grabbing the tail and yanking it back. "Stop it," she hissed at the tail, not him. But then her hand brushed his chest by accident, her red fingers grazing his shirt. A jolt shot through both of them, like static electricity mixed with something hotter. Jake's eyes widened. "Whoa, did you?" "Yes," she snapped, pulling back. Her tail slipped free again, wrapping around his ankle this time. "This is your fault." "My fault." Jake laughed, nervous. "You're the one with the freaky love oil. I was just trying to not get killed by squid guys." The tail tightened, pulling his leg closer. Jake flailed, falling back on a bed. "Okay, this is getting weird. Call it off." "I can't," Zara said, her voice rising. She climbed onto the bed, trying to grab the tail again, but ended up straddling his legs in the process. Her hands landed on his chest, pinning him down. For a second, they froze, her red face inches from his, her tail still coiled around his ankle, and that damn essence buzzing between them like a live wire. Jake swallowed hard. "A high." Zara's eyes narrowed, but her tail didn't let go. "Don't say anything." "Too late," said a new voice, a smooth, robotic one. The ceiling lit up, and a holographic face appeared. a smirking AI with glowing eyes. Greetings, bonded pair. I'm Lustron 3000, your chamber assistant. Shall I dim the lights further? Perhaps add some music? I suggest Rylothian passion beats, 92% success rate for intimate bonding. Jake groaned. Oh great, now we got a perv robot. Zara glared at the AI. Turn off, you pile of circuits. Negative, Lustron 3000 chirped. Bonding protocol active. Physical contact detected. Progress, 15%. Keep going. Zara's tail twitched, sliding higher up Jake's leg. He yelped again. Progress. What progress? I'm being attacked by a tail here. It's not attacking, Zara muttered, her face flushed. It's curious. Curious? Jake's voice cracked. About what? My pants. Before she could answer, the bed vibrated softly, and Lustron 3000's voice purred. Relax, human. Let the bond deepen. You're in good hands. And tails. Jake stared at Zara, then at her tail, then back at her. I'm so screwed, aren't I? Zara sighed, her tail loosening just a bit. You have no idea. And that was the end of Jake's hope for a quiet night. The bonding chamber felt like a trap designed by a mad scientist with a romance novel obsession. The walls shimmered like molten silver. The floating orbs pulsed with that creepy red glow, and the giant round bed kept vibrating like it was trying to flirt. Jake lay sprawled on his back, staring at the ceiling where Lustron 3000's smug holographic face hovered. Zara was still straddling his legs, her hands planted on his chest, her tail wrapped loosely around his ankle. Her red skin practically glowed in the dim light, and those curved ears twitched like she was picking up every panicked beat of his heart. Okay, Jake said, his voice shaky. Let's just take a breather, yeah? You get off me, we tell the robot to chill, and maybe I don't die of embarrassment tonight. Zara glared down at him, her golden eyes narrowing. You think I want to be here? On top of you? I'd rather be fighting a pack of ash serpents than dealing with this. Her tail tightened around his ankle, cutting off her words with a frustrated growl. Hey, easy with the tail. Jake yelped, squirming. That's my leg, not a chew toy. It's not me, Zara snapped, yanking at the tail with both hands. It slipped free from her grip and darted back toward Jake, brushing his thigh this time. That warm, electric tingle hit again, stronger than before, like the essence of unity was playing matchmaker with his nervous system. He jolted, nearly bucking Zara off the bed. Whoa, he shouted, grabbing the cushions for support. What the hell is this stuff doing to us? Lustron 3000's voice chimed in, smooth and smug. The essence of unity enhances physical and emotional resonance. Current sync level, 18%. Recommendation, increase contact for optimal bonding. Perhaps a kiss? 74% of Rylothian couples report satisfaction with. Shut it, Zara barked, her tail whipping toward the ceiling like she could smack the AI. It missed, curling back to graze Jake's arm instead. He flinched, the buzz spreading through his chest again. Oh, come on. This is not fair. Zara climbed off him, her movements sharp and angry, but her tail stayed stubbornly close, hovering near his leg like a curious snake. She sat on the far edge of the bed, arms crossed, her red skin flushed a deeper shade. This is your fault, she muttered. If you hadn't stumbled in like a drunk fool. I was running for my life. Jake shot back, sitting up. He waved his half-empty bottle of stellar moonshine. Squid guys with knives, okay? I didn't sign up for a wedding, a tale, or... He gestured wildly at the room. Whatever this freaky love nest is. The bonding chamber is sacred, Zara said, her voice tight. It's meant to unite mates. Strengthen them. Not trap me with a human who smells like a bar floor. Jake sniffed his jacket. Hey, this is quality stink. Took me years to perfect it. He took a swig of moonshine, the burn steadying his nerves. So what's the plan? We just sit here and let your tail grope me till it's happy. Zara's eyes flashed. It's not groping. It's reacting. To you. The essence makes it sensitive to your... She faltered, her tail twitching again. My what? Jake grinned, leaning closer. My rugged charm? My winning personality? Your stupidity, she deadpanned. but her tail betrayed her, sliding up his shin and resting there. Jake froze, the warmth spreading through him like a shot of something stronger than moonshine. Okay, that's weirdly nice, he admitted, his voice softer, but also terrifying. Is it going to keep doing that? Until the bond sinks, Zara said, glaring at her tail like it was a traitor. We have to touch more. Fully, or it'll keep poking at you. Jake's eyebrows shot up. Touch more? Like how much more? 'Cause I'm not sure I'm ready for alien wife level 2 stuff. Zara groaned, rubbing her temples. Not that. Just skin contact. Hands, arms, something to calm the essence down. Otherwise, this, she pointed at her tail, which was now tracing lazy circles on his knee. Won't stop. Jake stared at the tail, then at her. So you're saying we got to cuddle, or your tail's going to turn me into its personal playground? Pretty much, she muttered, looking away. Her ears twitched, and Jake could have sworn her cheeks got redder. He laughed, a nervous, half-drunk sound. Well, shit. I've had worse dates. All right, let's do it. Cuddle time. But no funny business, got it? I'm a gentleman. You're a disaster, Zara corrected, but she scooted closer. Her tail unwound from his leg, hovering like it was waiting for permission. Jake held out his hand, hesitant. Here, he said. Start small. Shake on it. Zara stared at his hand like it was a live grenade. Then, with a sigh, she grabbed it. Her red fingers were warm, hot, even against his clammy skin. The moment they touched, the essence kicked in hard. A rush of heat shot up Jake's arm, straight to his chest, like someone flipped a switch. He gasped and Zara flinched, her tail jerking upright. Holy! Jake started, gripping her hand tighter. Did you feel that? Yes, she said, her voice low. Her ears flicked, and her tail swayed, brushing his wrist now. It's sinking. Slowly. Slowly's good, Jake said, his heart pounding. Slowly's fine. I can handle slowly. But the buzz was spreading, and he couldn't tell if it was the essence or the fact that Zara's hand felt weirdly right in his. Lustron, 3,000 piped up again. Sync level, 25%. Excellent progress. Suggestion, move to chest contact for a 40% boost. Bare skin recommended. Jake snorted. Yeah, nice try, Pervbot. We're sticking to hands. Agreed, Zara said, though her tail didn't seem to listen. It slipped under his jacket sleeve, brushing his forearm. Jake yelped, pulling back, but her grip held firm. Your tail's got no chill, he said, laughing despite himself. It's like a drunk buddy who won't stop hugging me. It's not funny, Zara growled, but her lips twitched, like she was fighting a smile. She tugged her tail back, but it darted forward again, this time curling around his elbow. The tingle turned into a steady hum, and Jake felt something shift, like a piece of her was leaking into him. Anger, pride, a flicker of curiosity. Was that her? Whoa, he said, blinking. I think I just felt you. Like, your vibes. You're pissed, huh? Zara's eyes widened. You shouldn't be able to. Damn it. The essence is too strong. She let go of his hand, but the tail stayed, looping around his arm like a bracelet. This is a nightmare. Nightmare for you? Maybe, Jake said, grinning. I'm kind of digging this. My wife's got a magic tail. Beats getting stabbed by squid guys. Stop calling me your wife, she snapped, but her tail tightened, pulling his arm closer. Jake leaned in, testing the waters. Can't help it, babe. We're hitched. Might as well make the best of it. He wiggled his eyebrows, and her tail flicked up, smacking his shoulder. Ow! He laughed, rubbing the spot. Okay, noted. No pet names. Lustron, 3,000 hummed. Sync level, 30%. Emotional resonance detected. Suggestion, lie down together. 85% chance of. Off, Zara shouted, her tail whipping toward the ceiling again. It missed, landing back on Jake's lap instead. He froze, the warmth sinking into his thighs. He said, voice high. That's new territory. Zara's face went full-on crimson. Move it, she hissed at the tail, not him. She grabbed it, yanking hard, but it slipped free and coiled around his waist. Jake's breath hitched as the hum turned into a pulse, like their heartbeats were trying to match. Okay, this is officially weird, he said, hands up. Your tail's got a crush on me. It does not. Zara said, but she sounded less sure. She crawled closer, grabbing his shoulders. Hold still. I'll fix this. Fix how? Jake asked, but she was already pressing her palms against his chest again. The pulse spiked, and he felt it. Her frustration, her strength, and something softer buried deep. Curiosity? Attraction? He couldn't tell, but it made his head spin. Stop thinking, Zara snapped, her tail tightening around his waist. I'm not. Jake Slippery. Okay, maybe a little. You're kind of hot when you're mad. Her ears flicked, and her tail froze. What did you say? Nothing. Jake backpedaled, grinning. Just, admiring your warrior vibes? Lustron, 3000 chuckled. Sync level, 35%. Flirtation detected. Suggestion, remove clothing for. Enough, Zara roared, shoving Jake back. He flopped onto the cushions, her tail still wrapped around him. She loomed over him, breathing hard, her red skin glowing like a furnace. Look, Jake said, hands up. I'm not the enemy here. Your tail's the one getting handsy, or tailsy. Can we just chill for a sec? Zara glared, but her tail loosened, sliding back to his leg. She sat back, exhaling. Fine. We'll wait it out. But no more talking. Deal, Jake said, taking another swig of moonshine. He glanced at her tail, still resting on his knee. But I'm keeping an eye on that thing. She snorted, a tiny, reluctant laugh. Good luck with that. And so, they sat there, stuck in a glowing love dungeon, with a tail that wouldn't quit and an AI that wouldn't shut up. Jake wasn't sure if he'd survive the night, or if he even wanted to escape anymore. The bonding chamber had turned into a battlefield of awkwardness, and Jake was losing spectacularly. He sprawled on the cushy bed, stellar moonshine bottle resting on his chest, while Zara sat a few feet away, her red legs crossed, and her tail flicking like it was plotting something. The air hummed with that weird essence energy, and every time her tail brushed him, his knee, his arm, his freaking hip, it sent a jolt through him like a shot of caffeine mixed with something way too personal. He wasn't hating it, exactly, but it was messing with his head. So, Jake said, breaking the silence because he couldn't help himself. This bonding thing, how long's it take? 'Cause I've got places to be. Well, one place. My ship, if it's still in one piece. Zara didn't look at him. It takes as long as it takes, she said, her voice flat. Her tail, though, had other ideas. It slid toward him again, curling around his calf like a clingy pet. She grabbed it, yanking it back. Stop that. Jake grinned, propping himself up on his elbows. I'm starting to think your tail likes me more than you do. It doesn't like anything, Zara snapped, wrestling the tail into submission. It wriggled free and darted back, this time brushing his hand. He flinched, the buzz hitting his chest again. Ugh, it's the essence. It's making everything worse. Worse how? Jake asked, genuinely curious. 'Cause from where I'm sitting, it's like your tail's flirting with me. Badly, sure, but still flirting. Zara's ears twitched, and her golden eyes flicked to him, sharp and annoyed. It's not flirting. It's confused. The essence links us too fast. It's picking up your... She stopped, her cheeks darkening. My what? Jake pressed, leaning closer. My rugged good looks? My irresistible human charm. Your chaos, she muttered, looking away. Her tail betrayed her again, sliding up his arm and resting there. Jake felt a flicker of something. Her irritation, yeah, but also a tiny spark of amusement. Was she secretly enjoying this? Whoa, he said, blinking. I felt that. You think I'm funny, don't you? No, she said too quickly. Her tail tightened, and the spark grew stronger. Jake laughed, loud and triumphant. Liar, your tail's ratting you out. You're stuck with me, and you kind of like it. Zara growled, lunging to grab the tail. I'll cut it off before I admit that. But she overshot, landing half on top of him again. Her hands hit his shoulders, pinning him down, and her tail coiled around his waist like it was claiming him. The essence pulsed hard, a wave of heat rolling through them both. Jake's breath caught, and Zara froze, her face inches from his. Jake said, his voice cracking. Hi again. Shut up, she hissed, but her tail didn't budge. It squeezed tighter, and he felt it. Her heartbeat, fast and strong, syncing with his. Her red skin was warm against him, and those curved ears twitched like she was fighting something inside. Lustron 3000's voice broke the tension. Sync level, 40%. Physical proximity optimal. Suggestion, full body contact recommended. Remove clothing for. Off, Zara shouted, shoving off Jake and rolling to the side. Her tail stayed wrapped around him, though, pulling him with her. He flopped onto the bed beside her, laughing despite the chaos. Your robot's a perv, he said, catching his breath. But it's got a point. This essence thing's not letting up. It's your fault, Zara muttered, sitting up. Her tail finally unwound, hovering near his leg like it was sulking. If you weren't so you, this wouldn't be so hard. So me. Jake grinned, sitting up too. You mean awesome? Resourceful? The guy who's still alive despite squid guys, a wedding crash, and your killer tail. Annoying, she corrected, but her lips twitched again. That almost smile was back, and Jake latched onto it like a lifeline. See? You're warming up to me. Admit it. Your tail's just the first to crack. Zara glared, but her tail brushed his hand again, soft and deliberate. It's not cracking. It's testing you. Testing. Jake raised an eyebrow. For what? Husband material? Her ears flicked, and she looked away. For survival. Rylothian mates need strength. Resilience. You're weak, but you're still here. It's curious. Jake puffed out his chest, mock offended. Weak? I'll have you know I've survived bar fights, space pirates, and that time I ate a glowworm burrito. I'm tougher than I look. You look like a stray dog, Zara said, but her tail curled around his wrist, warm and steady. The essence hummed again, and Jake felt that spark, her curiosity growing, mixed with a grudging respect. Okay, ouch, he said, grinning. But stray dogs are scrappy. That's my superpower. Scrappiness. Zara snorted, another tiny laugh, and Jake counted it as a win. Scrappiness won't save you from my father, she said, her tone shifting. He'll test you. Hard. Your dad. Jake's grin faltered. Big red guy with a bigger tail? Warlord Rylothar, she said, nodding. Leader of Rylothar. He'll hate you. Great, Jake muttered, taking a swig of moonshine. So, I've got a hot alien wife and a scary alien father-in-law. This day keeps getting better. You have no idea, Zara said, her tail loosening. She stood, pacing the room, her red figure cutting through the glow. We're stuck till the sink finishes. Then we face him. How high's the sink gotta go? Jake asked, watching her tail sway. It was hypnotic, honestly, long, sleek, and way too distracting. 50%, she said, stopping. Maybe more. Depends on us. Us, Jake echoed, leaning back. So more touching? More tail action. Zara glared, but her tail drifted toward him again, brushing his leg. Stop enjoying this. Can't help it, he said, smirking. Your tail's got moves. Ever think about dancing with it? Her eyes narrowed, but the tail twitched like it liked the idea. You're impossible. And you're stuck with me, Jake shot back. So what's next? We hug it out? Arm wrestle? I'm open to suggestions. Lustron 3000 chimed in. Sync level, 45%. Suggestion, lie side by side. Skin contact accelerates. Quiet. Zara snapped, but she hesitated, glancing at Jake. Her tail nudged his hand, almost gentle now. Fine, we'll lie down. But no tricks. Scout's honor, Jake said, raising his bottle. He scooted over, patting the bed. Come on, wifey. Let's sync up and get this over with. Zara sighed, long and dramatic, but she lay down beside him, keeping a solid foot of space between them. Her tail, though, ignored the gap. It stretched across, resting on his stomach. The warmth hit instantly, and the essence pulsed, syncing their breaths. See? Jake said, grinning. Not so bad. Shut up, Zara muttered, but she didn't move. Her tail stayed, and Jake felt it, her guard dropping just a little. Lustron 3000 hummed. Sync level, 50%. Bonding complete. Congratulations, mates. Jake blinked. Wait, that's it. Zara sat up, her tail pulling back. Yes. For now. She stood, brushing off her outfit. Get up. We're leaving. Leaving. Jake scrambled after her, bottle in hand. To where? Rylothar, she said, the doors hissing open. My father's waiting. Jake groaned, following her out. Awesome. From a love nest to a death trap. My luck's on fire. Zara's tail flicked, brushing his leg one last time. You'll need more than luck, human. And with that, Jake's honeymoon night ended. Not with a bang, but with a promise of worse to come. The ship ride to Rylothar was a blur of nerves and bad decisions. Jake sat strapped into a co-pilot's seat that smelled like burnt metal and regret, his half-empty bottle of stellar moonshine rolling around by his feet. Zara piloted the sleek, red craft, a Rylothian vessel that looked like a dagger carved from ruby, her hands steady on the controls. Her tail was coiled around her seat, twitching every now and then like it was still mad about the bonding chamber. Jake kept sneaking glances at her, red skin glowing under the cockpit lights, curved ears flicking as she muttered commands in her sharp, alien tongue. She was gorgeous, sure, but also terrifying, especially now that they were headed to meet her dad. So, Jake said, breaking the silence, because sitting quiet wasn't his thing. This warlord Rylothar guy. Big deal, huh? Like king of the red people? Zara didn't look at him. He's the warlord of Rylothar, ruler of our clans, strongest warrior in 3 systems. And he'll hate you. Jake grinned, leaning back. Hate's a strong word. Maybe he'll see my charm. I got a knack for winning over tough guys. Once talked a pirate into giving me his hat instead of my head. Charm won't help, Zara said, her voice flat. He values strength. Honor. You're a smuggler who tripped into my wedding. He'll want you dead. Dead. Jake's grin faltered. He grabbed his bottle, taking a quick swig. The burn steadied him. Okay, but I survived your tail. That's how to count for something, right? Her tail flicked, brushing the edge of his seat. Jake flinched, that familiar tingle from the essence of unity sparking up his leg. Stop reminding me, Zara muttered, her ears twitching. The bond's done. No more touching. Too late for that, Jake said, smirking. Your tail's got a mind of its own. Bet it misses me already. Zara glared, but her tail stayed put, like it was sulking. The ship jolted as it entered Rylothar's atmosphere, and Jake gripped his seat, peering out the viewport. The planet loomed below, a red, jagged ball of fire and rock, with volcanoes spewing smoke and cities carved into cliffs. It looked like hell had a makeover and decided to get fancy. Home sweet home, Zara said, guiding the ship toward a landing platform perched on a mountain's edge. The platform was massive, surrounded by Rylothian guards in spiked armor, their tails swaying like whips. Jake swallowed hard. Yeah, this screams welcome, new son-in-law. The ship touched down with a hiss, and the ramp lowered. Zara stood, her tail uncurling as she adjusted her outfit. A tight, battle-ready getup that showed off every curve. Jay tried not to stare, but the essence buzzed in his chest anyway, like it was nudging him to notice. Come on, she said, stepping out. Don't embarrass me. Wouldn't dream of it, Jake muttered, grabbing his bottle and following her. The air hit him like a punch, hot, dry, and thick with the smell of sulfur. He coughed, waving a hand. You guys live in a barbecue pit. It's Rylothar, Zara said, striding toward the guards. Strength thrives here. Weakness dies. Great, Jake said, jogging to keep up. Guess I'm toast. The guards parted, revealing a figure that made Jake's stomach drop. Warlord Rylothar stood at the platform's center, a mountain of red muscle wrapped in black armor studded with bones. His skin was darker than Zara's, almost maroon, and his tail was twice as long, thick, scarred, and coiled like a snake ready to strike. His golden eyes locked onto Jake, and his curved ears didn't twitch. They just loomed, steady and menacing. Zara stopped, bowing her head slightly. Father. Ryothar's gaze didn't leave Jake. This is him. His voice was deep like rocks grinding together. The human who defiled your bonding? Defiled's harsh, Jake said, raising a hand. I tripped okay. Total accident. Imjaka. Nice tail. Nice to meet you. Ryothar's tail lashed, cracking the stone floor. Jake jumped back, bottles slipping from his hand. It rolled away, and a guard snatched it up, sniffing it before tossing it aside. "Hey," Jake protested. "That's mine." "You bring weakness to my house," Rylothar said, stepping closer. He towered over Jake, at least 7 feet tall, his shadow swallowing him whole. "A stumbling fool with no honor. Why should I let you live?" Jake swallowed, his mind racing. 'Cause I'm scrappy? Good at surviving? I once outran a bounty hunter on a busted hoverbike." "Silence," Rylothar growled, his tail rising. Zara stepped forward, her own tail twitching. "He's bonded to me, father," she said, her voice firm. "The essence chose him. Killing him breaks our laws." Rylotar's eyes narrowed. "The essence is blind. But I am not." He turned, motioning to the guards. "Bring the blaze nectar. He'll prove himself or burn." "Blaze nectar?" Jake whispered, leaning toward Zara. "That sound bad." "It is," she said, her ears flicking. "A warrior's drink. Pure fire. Most outsiders die." Jake's voice cracked. "You didn't mention dying." "You didn't ask," Zara said, her tail brushing his leg again, like it was trying to comfort him. The essence buzzed, and he felt a flicker of her worry. She hid it well, but it was there. A guard returned with a metal cup, big as a soup bowl, filled with a glowing orange liquid that smoked like lava. Rylothar took it, holding it out to Jake. "Drink. Survive. Then we'll see if you're worth my daughter." Jake stared at the cup, then at Ryothar's unblinking eyes. Any chance I can get a chaser with that?" Rylothar didn't smile. His tail tapped the ground, impatient. Jake grabbed the cup, hot to the touch, and lifted it, sniffing. It smelled like gasoline and regret. "Okay," he muttered. "I've had worse." "Probably." He tipped it back, and the blaze nectar hit his throat like a flamethrower. His eyes watered, his chest burned, and he choked, slamming the cup down. "Holy!" he gasped, coughing. "That's not a drink. That's a war crime." The guards murmured, and Rylothar watched, stone-faced. Jake swayed, the heat spreading through him, but he didn't fall. He wiped his mouth, grinning through the pain. "See? Still standing. Tougher than I look, huh?" Rylothar grunted. "You live." "Barely." He turned, gesturing to an archway carved into the cliff. The drink was the easy part. "Follow me." "Easy," Jake wheezed, clutching his stomach. Zara grabbed his arm, pulling him along. "Move," she said, her tail nudging his back. "He's not done with you." They entered a massive arena, its floor cracked red stone, its walls lined with Rylothian warriors cheering and stomping. In the center stood a cage, and inside it, something growled. A hulking beast with 4 legs, scales like molten rock, and eyes that glowed orange. A flameclaw. "Oh no," Jake said, stopping dead. "That's a dinosaur. You've got a freaking dinosaur." "It's a flameclaw," Zara said, her tail curling around her waist. "Father's second test. Fight it. Win. Fight it." Jake spun to her. "With what? My charm? I'm a smuggler, not a gladiator." Ryothar's voice boomed from a throne above the arena. "Prove your worth, human, or die like the weakling you are." The cage rattled, and the flameclaw roared, spitting a burst of fire that singed the air. Jake stumbled back, hands up. "Okay, new plan. Run and hide?" "No running," Zara said, shoving him forward. Her tail smacked his backside, pushing him toward the cage. "Fight, or we're both shamed. Shame's better than dead." Jake yelped, but the cage door creaked open, and the flameclaw charged. Its claws scraped the stone, and Jake dove, rolling behind a rock as fire blasted over his head. "Holy shit," he shouted, popping up. "This is not how I pictured marriage." The crowd roared, and Rylothar leaned forward, watching. Jake peeked out, heart pounding. The flameclaw sniffed the air, its tail lashing, bigger than Zara's, meaner too. Then Jake's eyes landed on his bottle of stellar moonshine, lying near the arena's edge where the guard had tossed it. "All right," he muttered, ducking another fireball. "Time to get scrappy." He bolted, zigzagging as the flameclaw lunged. The crowd gasped, and Zara's tail twitched, her eyes locked on him. Jake snatched the bottle, spinning to face the beast. "Hey, ugly, catch!" He hurled the moonshine, and it shattered against the flameclaw's snout, splashing glowing liquid everywhere. The beast roared, shaking its head, and Jake grabbed a loose stone, chucking it too. It bounced off, useless, but the distraction worked. The flame claw slipped on the wet floor, crashing into the cage. Yes! Jake pumped a fist, grinning. Who's weak now? Rylothar stood, his tail still. Clever, he rumbled. But not enough. The flame claw recovered, charging again. Jake dove, rolling under its claws, and spotted a crack in the arena floor. He scrambled toward it, an idea forming. Come on, big guy, he taunted, waving his arms. Over here. The beast lunged, and Jake jumped aside. Its claws hit the crack, splitting the stone wider, and one leg sank in, trapping it. It thrashed, roaring, and Jake collapsed, panting. Ah, take that. The crowd cheered, and Zara's tail flicked, brushing his leg from across the arena. He felt it. Her relief, mixed with something warmer. Respect? Rylothar descended, his expression unreadable. You live, he said, stopping above Jake. For now. Jake grinned, wiping sweat from his brow. Told you. Scrappy. But Ryelothar's tail tapped the ground, and Jake knew this wasn't over. The flame claw was still thrashing in the cracked arena floor, its roars echoing off the stone walls. But Jake barely had time to catch his breath. He sprawled on his back, chest heaving, sweat dripping into his eyes. The Rylothian crowd was going wild, cheering, stomping, their tails swishing like a sea of red whips. Zara stood at the arena's edge, her own tail flicking fast, her golden eyes locked on him. Jake felt a buzz through the essence of unity, her mix of relief and something sharper, like she was impressed but pissed about it. Rylothar loomed over him, his maroon skin dark against the glowing sky, his massive tail swaying like a pendulum, counting down Jake's lifespan. You survived, he said, his voice a low rumble. By luck and trickery, not strength. Jake pushed himself up, grinning through the ache in his ribs. Hey, Luck's my middle name. Well, technically it's Harold, but Luck sounds cooler. He wiped his face with his sleeve, trying to look less like a guy who just dodged a fiery death. Ryelothar's tail cracked the ground again, silencing the crowd. Luck is not honor. Strength is not cunning. You are no warrior. Never said I was, Jake replied, standing shakily. I'm a smuggler. We don't fight fair, we fight smart. Got me this far, didn't it? Zara stepped forward, her tail brushing Jake's leg as she moved. The touch sent a spark up his spine, and he flinched, catching her eye. He's right, father, she said, her voice steady. He's weak by our standards, but he's alive. That's something. Ryelothar's gaze shifted to her, then back to Jake. Something, he repeated like it tasted bad. Not enough. He raised a hand, and the guards snapped to attention. Bring the chains of valor. Chains of what now? Jake muttered, glancing at Zara. Her ears twitched, and her tail curled tighter around her waist. A bad sign. It's the final test, she said quietly. Strength and will. You'll face the flame claw again. Bound. Bound! Jake's voice shot up. You mean tied up? Well, that thing tries to barbecue me. That's insane. That's Rylothian, Zara said, her tail nudging his back like it was pushing him to man up. Prove you're worthy of the bond, or we're both dishonored. Dishonored's sounding real cozy right now. Jake rumbled, but the guards were already moving. Two of them hauled out a set of thick, glowing chains, red metal that pulsed like it was alive. They grabbed Jake's arms, and he flailed, nearly tripping over his own feet. Whoa, hold up, he yelped. Can't we just arm wrestle instead? I'm great at cheating at that. Rylothar didn't blink. Chain him. The guards yanked Jake's arms behind his back, snapping the chains around his wrists. They were hot, not enough to burn, but enough to make him sweat more, and they tightened like they had a mind of their own. His shoulders ached as they locked in place, leaving him defenseless. The flame claw, freed from the crack by a team of handlers, roared and pawed the ground, its orange eyes glaring at him. Oh, this is bullshit, Jake said, tugging at the chains. They didn't budge. What am I supposed to do? Headbutt it. Survive, Rylothar said, stepping back to his throne. Or don't. The handlers released the flame claw, and it charged faster than before. Jake dove, rolling sideways as its claws swiped the air where he'd been. The chains clanked, throwing off his balance, and he hit the ground hard, gasping. Okay, new plan, dodge till it gets bored. The crowd roared, and the beast spun, spitting fire. Jake scrambled behind a rock, the heat singeing his hair. I like my bangs, he shouted, peeking out. The flame claw lunged again, and he bolted, ducking under its snapping jaws. The chains rattled, slowing him down, but he kept moving, zigzagging, tripping, anything to stay alive. Zara watched, her tail whipping fast now. Jake felt her through the essence, panic, frustration, and that damn spark of respect growing. Come on, human, she yelled, her voice cutting through the chaos. Don't die. Working on it. Jake called back, diving as fire blasted over him. He rolled, slamming into the arena wall, and spotted a loose spike in the stone, one of the handler's tools. An idea hit him, crazy but scrappy. He ran, the flame claw hot on his heels, and hooked the chains around the spike. Hold still, you big lizard, he muttered, pulling tight. The beast lunged, and Jake yanked, using its momentum. The chains caught, jamming the spike deeper, and the flame claw's claw snagged in the tangle. It roared, thrashing, but it was stuck for now. Jake collapsed, panting, his arms screaming from the strain. Who's the badass now? The crowd went silent, then erupted, louder than before. Rylothar stood, his tail still, his eyes narrowed. Jake grinned up at him, chest heaving. See? Told you. Scrappy. Zara rushed over, her tail brushing his shoulder as she knelt beside him. You're an idiot, she said, but her voice was softer, and her tail stayed, warm against his skin. Yeah, but I'm your idiot, Jake said, winking. The essence buzzed, and he felt it. Her relief, stronger now, mixed with something warmer. She didn't argue. Rylothar descended, his boots thudding on the stone. Unchain him, he ordered. The guards obeyed, and Jake rubbed his wrists, groaning as the blood rushed back. Rylothar towered over him, his tail swaying slow and deliberate. You live, he said, his tone grudging. Again by tricks, not by might. Tricks work, Jake said, standing shakily. Kept me breathing through worse than this. Rylothar grunted, his tail tapping once more. Perhaps, but you're no Rylothian. He turned to Zara. This bond shames us. He must do more. More, Jake groaned, slumping. What's next? Wrestling a volcano. Zara's tail nudged his leg, a tiny comfort. Not far off, she muttered. Father, he's proven enough. He's alive. Bonded. That's the law. The law bends, Rylothar said, his eyes cold. One final test. Tomorrow. He fights with you. As mates. Fights with me. Zara's ears flicked, and her tail froze. Against what? Ryothar's tail cracked the ground, a rare smirk tugging at his lips. You'll see. Jake stared, then laughed, a nervous, half-crazed sound. Oh, great. Team building with the in-laws. Can't wait. Zara grabbed his arm, pulling him up. You're lucky you're still breathing, she said, her tail brushing his back. Don't push it. Too late, Jake said, grinning. Pushing it's my specialty. Rylothar turned, striding away, and the crowd dispersed, buzzing with excitement. Jake leaned on Zara, his legs wobbly. So, how's my score so far? Passing grade? Barely, she said, but her tail stayed close, curling near his hip. The essence hummed, and Jake felt it, her guard dropping just a bit more. Good enough, he said, smirking. Let's hope tomorrow's test has a bar. Zara snorted, leading him out of the arena. You'll need more than booze, human. And Jake, still alive despite it all, couldn't argue with that. The night after the Flameclaw fiasco didn't offer much rest. Jake was hauled off to a Rylothian guest chamber, a cave-like room carved into the cliffside, with a slab of stone for a bed and a view of glowing lava rivers outside. He collapsed onto the slab, groaning as every muscle screamed in protest. His wrists still ached from the chains of valor, and his throat felt like he'd gargled hot coals, courtesy of the blaze nectar. But he was alive, scrappy, stubborn, and somehow married to a red-skinned warrior with a tail that wouldn't quit. He barely slept, tossing and turning, until a sharp knock jolted him awake. The door slid open, and Zara strode in, her red skin catching the dim light. Her tail swayed behind her, restless, and her golden eyes fixed on him with that mix of annoyance and grudging respect he was starting to recognize. "Up," she said, her voice crisp. "Father's test starts soon." Jake groaned, rolling off the slab and landing on his feet with a wince. "Morning to you too, wifey. What's on the menu today? More fire-breathing pets? A lava bath?" Zara's tail flicked, brushing his leg as she stepped closer. The essence of unity buzzed, sending a spark through him, and he flinched, still not used to it. "Worse," she said. "We fight together, as mates, against Zargith." "Zargith?" Jake rubbed his eyes, trying to focus. "Who's that?" "Another pissed-off in-law. A rival warlord," Zara said, her ears twitching. "He challenged Father's honor and ours. He says your bond with me weakens our clan. We face him in the ash pit today." Jake blinked, processing. Ash pit? Sound cozy. And this Zargith guy, he's big, red, and hates me too, I'm guessing. "Bigger than Father," Zara said, her tail curling around her waist. "Stronger, crueler. And yes, he'll want you dead." "Great," Jake muttered, stretching his sore arms. "So, it's a tag-team death match? You and me versus Mr. Big and Bad? I'm flattered you think I'm up for it." "You're not," Zara said bluntly, but her tail nudged his hip, soft and quick. "But you're bonded to me. If we lose, we're both shamed or dead." Jake grinned, despite the dread pooling in his gut. "No pressure, then. Let's go kick some alien ass, babe." "Stop calling me that," Zara snapped, but her tail lingered near him as she turned, leading him out. Jake followed, his boots scuffing the stone floor, his mind racing for a plan. He wasn't a fighter, not like these Rylothians, but he'd survived worse odds with less. Maybe. The ash pit was a nightmare come to life. A massive crater sunk into Rylothar's red earth, its edges lined with cheering warriors, their tails thrashing in excitement. The pit's floor was black ash, swirling with heat haze, and jagged rocks jutted up like teeth. At the center stood Zargith, a hulking Rylothian with skin so dark it was nearly black, his tail thick and spiked, his golden eyes glowing with malice. Beside him slithered an ash serpent, a long, sinuous beast with scales like charred metal, its maw dripping molten drool. Jake stopped at the pit's edge, staring. "Oh, come on. A snake? A big, melty snake? This is overkill." Zara gripped her spear, her tail tense. "Zargith fights dirty. The serpent's his pet. Stay sharp, or it'll eat you." "Eat me?" Jake's voice cracked. "I'm not on a menu." Zargith's voice boomed across the pit. "Rylothar, your daughter's mate is a worm. This human shames Rylothian blood." He pointed at Jake, his tail cracking the air. "I'll crush him, and her, then take your throne." Rylothar stood above, his own tail still, his face a mask of stone. "Prove it, Zargith. The pit decides." Jake glanced at Zara. "Your dad's real chatty, huh?" "Shut up," she muttered, shoving him forward. Her tail smacked his backside, pushing him into the pit. "Move!" Jake stumbled down the slope, ash puffing around his boots. Zara landed beside him, spear ready, her tail swaying like a weapon of its own. Zargith laughed, a deep, grating sound, and the ash serpent hissed, coiling to strike. "All right," Jake said, "hands up. You take the big guy, I'll, distract the snake." "Don't die," Zara said, charging Zargith. Her spear clashed with his massive blade, sparks flying, and Jake bolted as the serpent lunged. Its jaws snapped inches from his legs, and he dove, rolling through the ash. "Not today, buddy," he shouted, grabbing a handful of ash and chucking it at the serpent's face. It hissed, shaking its head, and Jake scrambled behind a rock, panting. "Okay, scrappy time." "Think, Jake, think." Zara and Zargith traded blows, her speed matching his brute force. Her tail lashed out, tripping him, but he roared, swinging his blade. She ducked, and Jake felt it through the essence, her focus, her strain, and a flicker of worry for him. "Hang in there," he yelled, ducking another snap from the serpent. He spotted a broken spear shaft in the ash, Zara's from an earlier dodge, and grabbed it. "Hey, snake face," he taunted, waving the stick. The serpent turned, lunging, and Jake jammed the shaft into its mouth, wedging it open. It thrashed, spitting molten drool, and Jake yelped as a drop singed his sleeve. "Bad plan," he shouted, diving away. The serpent shook the shaft free, charging again, and Jake ran, zigzagging through the pit. The crowd roared, and Zargith laughed, slamming Zara back with a brutal swing. She hit the ground, rolling, and Jake felt her pain, a sharp stab through the essence. "Zara!" he yelled, sprinting toward her. The serpent cut him off, its tail whipping out. Jake ducked, sliding under it, and reached her as she staggered up. "You okay?" he asked, grabbing her arm. Her tail brushed his hand, warm and shaky, and the essence pulsed, her strength flooding back, mixed with his adrenaline. "Fine," she growled, standing. "Focus." Zargith charged, blade raised, and the serpent coiled behind them. Jake shoved Zara aside, taking a wild swing with his fists. Zargith caught his arm, twisting, and Jake yelped, hitting the ground. "Ow! Rude!" Zara leapt, her spear stabbing Zargith's shoulder. He roared, dropping Jake, and the serpent struck, aiming for her. Jake rolled, tackling her legs, and they crashed together as the jaws snapped above them. They landed in a tangle, Jake's face smacking into her chest. "Sorry," he gasped, scrambling up. Her tail wrapped around his waist, yanking him back as the serpent lunged again. "Stay down," Zara hissed, shoving him behind her. Her tail stayed, tight and protective, and Jake felt it, her fear, her fight, all pouring through the bond. "Okay, teamwork," he said, grinning despite the chaos. "You stab, I'll trip something." Zargith swung, and Zara parried, her tail lashing his legs. He stumbled, and Jake dove, grabbing Ash and hurling it into the serpent's eyes. It screeched, thrashing blindly, and smashed into Zargith, knocking him flat. "Yes!" Jake cheered, pumping a fist. "Take that, teamwork!" Zara glared, but her tail squeezed his waist, a quick, warm pulse. "Don't get cocky," she said, charging Zargith again. The serpent recovered, lunging for Jake, and he bolted, shouting, "Cocky's my middle name." The pit was chaos, Zargith and Zara clashing, the serpent snapping, and Jake dodging like a manic pinball. He grabbed another rock, chucking it at the serpent's head. It bounced off, useless, but bought Zara a second to stab Zargith's thigh. He roared, staggering, and Jake felt her triumph through the essence. "Keep it up," he yelled, ducking a tail swipe. "We've got this." Zargith spun, his blade slashing Zara's arm. She grunted, blood dripping, and Jake's chest tightened, her pain hitting him hard. "No," he shouted, charging without thinking. He tackled Zargith's legs, a scrappy, desperate move, and they crashed down together. "Get off!" Zargith roared, flinging Jake aside. He hit the ash, rolling, and the serpent loomed over him, jaws wide. "Jake!" Zara yelled, her tail whipping out. It wrapped around his ankle, yanking him back as the serpent struck, missing by inches. She pulled him to her, and he landed against her, breathless. "Thanks," he gasped, grinning. "Love the tail safe." "Shut up," she said, but her tail stayed, steadying him. Zargith rose, bloodied but furious, and the serpent hissed, ready for round two. Jake looked at Zara, her red face fierce and alive. "Ready, partner?" Her tail squeezed, and she nodded. "Ready," and the real fight was just beginning. Jake clung to Zara's side, Ash clinging to his sweaty face, his heart pounding like a drum solo gone wrong. Zargith loomed ahead, blood dripping from his thigh, his dark red skin glistening with rage. The ash serpent coiled beside him, its molten drool sizzling on the pit's black floor, its tail lashing like a whip. The crowd roared above, a wall of sound that shook Jake's bones, but he barely heard it over the buzz of the essence of unity, tying him to Zara. Her pain throbbed in his arm where Zargith's blade had cut her, but so did her fire. Fierce, unyielding, and just a little pissed at him for tackling her into the dirt. "Plan," Jake panted, glancing at her. Her tail was still wrapped around his ankle, tight and warm, like it wasn't letting him go anywhere. "Hit him hard," Zara said, gripping her spear with her good arm. Blood streaked her red skin, but her golden eyes burned. Distract the serpent. Don't die. Got it, Jake said, nodding. Stab, distract, live. Simple. I'm great at two of those. Zargith charged, his massive blade swinging, and Zara met him head-on, her spear clashing with a shower of sparks. Jake ducked as the serpent lunged, its jaws snapping at his head. He rolled, ash flying, and scrambled up, shouting, "Hey, slimy! Over here!" He grabbed a handful of ash and chucked it, hitting the serpent's snout. It hissed, shaking its head, and Jake bolted, zigzagging through the pit. Zara parried Zargith's next swing, her tail lashing out to trip him. He stumbled, roaring, and Jake felt her strain through the bond. Her arm was weakening. "Hang on," he yelled, dodging another snap from the serpent. He spotted a jagged rock near the pit's edge, one of the broken spikes from earlier, and ran for it, the serpent hot on his heels. "Keep him busy," Zara called, ducking a brutal slash. Her tail flicked toward Jake, brushing his leg as he passed. A quick, warm pulse that said, "Don't screw this up." He grinned, grabbing the rock and spinning to face the serpent. "All right, buddy," he said, waving the rock. "Let's dance." The serpent struck, and Jake dove, sliding under its belly. He jammed the rock into a gap in its scales, twisting hard. It screeched, thrashing, and molten drool splattered the ash, barely missing him. "Yes," he cheered, rolling away. "Take that, you oversized noodle." Zargith roared, slamming Zara back with a shoulder charge. She hit the ground, her spear skidding away, and Jake's chest tightened, her pain spiking through the essence. "Zara!" he shouted, sprinting toward her. The serpent swung its tail, and he leapt, barely clearing it, landing beside her as she pushed up. "You good?" he asked, helping her stand. Her tail wrapped around his waist, steadying them both, and the bond pulsed, her grit mixing with his panic. "Better than you," she grunted, grabbing her spear. "Move!" Zargith swung again, and they split, Zara diving left, Jake right. The serpent lunged for Jake, and he ducked, grabbing another handful of ash and hurling it into its eyes. It reared back, blinded, and smashed into Zargith, knocking him off balance. Zara seized the chance, stabbing his side, and he bellowed, blood pouring. "Teamwork!" Jake yelled, grinning. Her tail flicked toward him, brushing his arm, a quick, warm spark of approval. "Shut up!" she snapped, but her lips twitched. Zargith recovered, his blade slashing wildly, and Zara dodged, her wounded arm slowing her. The serpent shook off the ash, charging Jake again, and he bolted, shouting, "Okay, new plan. Run and scream." He darted behind a rock as the serpent spat molten drool, the heat searing his back. Zara clashed with Zargith, her spear parrying his blade, but he was stronger, pushing her back. Jake felt her struggle, her strength fading, and his scrappy brain kicked into overdrive. He spotted a crack in the pit's floor, widened from the serpent's thrashing, and an idea hit him. "Zara!" he yelled, waving. "Over here." She glanced at him, ducking a swing, and her tail flicked, a silent "what now?" "Trust me," he shouted, running toward the crack. She hesitated, then followed, her tail brushing his leg as she caught up. "This better work," she growled, panting. "It will," Jake said, hoping he wasn't lying. The serpent charged Zargith right behind, and Jake stopped at the crack, turning to face them. "Come on, you big bastards." The serpent lunged, and Jake dove, pulling Zara with him. They hit the ash, rolling aside as the serpent's jaws snapped shut, missing them. Its momentum carried it into the crack, wedging its head tight, and Zargith tripped over its thrashing tail, crashing face first into the stone. "Yes!" Jake cheered, jumping up. "Suck at teamwork." Zara staggered up, her tail wrapping around his waist again, tight and urgent. "He's not down," she warned, nodding at Zargith. The warlord rose, bloodied but furious, his blade gleaming as he charged. "Shit!" Jake yelped, shoving Zara aside. The blade slashed down, grazing his arm, and he stumbled, pain flaring. Zara roared, tackling Zargith, her spear stabbing his chest. He grunted, swinging wildly, and she ducked, her tail whipping his legs. He fell, and Jake leapt, landing on his back with a scrappy, desperate yell. "Stay down," Jake shouted, pinning Zargitha's arms. The warlord thrashed, nearly throwing him off, but Zara drove her spear deeper, pinning him to the ash. The serpent screeched, still stuck, and the crowd went silent, watching. Zargith snarled, his tail lashing, but he couldn't rise. "Weak, human," he spat, blood bubbling from his mouth. Weak but winning, Jake grinned, breathless. Zara's tail squeezed his waist, a warm pulse of triumph hitting him through the essence. Hers and his tangled together. The crowd erupted, cheering louder than ever, and Rylothar stood, his tail still. "Enough," he boomed, descending into the pit. Zargith slumped, defeated, and the serpent went limp, trapped, and exhausted. Jake rolled off, collapsing beside Zara, panting. "We did it," he gasped, grinning. "We're badass." "You're reckless," Zara said, but her tail stayed, curling around his arm now, soft and steady. She sat up, wincing at her arm, and Jake felt her pain, sharp but fading. "You okay?" he asked, sitting up too. Her tail brushed his chest, a warm tingle spreading, and he caught her eye, those golden depths softer than before. "I'll live," she said, her voice low. "You, scrappy as ever," he said, winking. Her tail squeezed, and the essence flared, her respect, her relief, and something hotter, deeper. Jake's breath hitched. Your tail's doing that thing again." She glared, but didn't pull it back. "Blame the bond," she muttered, standing. She offered a hand, pulling him up, and her tail lingered, warm against his side. Rylothar reached them, his massive frame casting a shadow. "You fought as mates," he said, his tone grudging. "Honor is yours. For now." "For now." Jake groaned, leaning on Zara. "What's next, a death maze?" Ryothar's tail tapped the ground, a rare smirk tugging his lips. "Rest, human. You've earned it." Zara's tail nudged Jake's hip, a quiet comfort, and he grinned. "Rest sounds good. With a drink." She snorted, leading him out. "You're impossible. And you love it," Jake teased, feeling her warmth through the bond. The pit faded behind them, victory theirs, but the heat between them was just starting to burn. Jake stumbled alongside Zara as they climbed out of the ash pit, ash clinging to his clothes and sweat stinging the cut on his arm. The crowd's cheers echoed behind them, a wild roar that made his ears ring, but all he could focus on was her. Her red skin glowing in the fiery light, her tail still curled around his arm like it didn't want to let go. The essence of unity pulsed between them, stronger now, a steady hum that mixed her fierce pride with his scrappy relief. And something else, something warm and electric that made his stomach flip in a way stellar moonshine never could. Zara's grip on his hand tightened as they reached the top, her tail brushing his side with every step. "You're a mess," she said, her voice gruff, but her golden eyes flicked over him, lingering on his torn shirt, his scratched-up chest. The bond buzzed, and Jake caught a flicker of her thoughts, concern, sure, but also a spark of something hotter. "Yeah, but a winning mess," he grinned, leaning into her for support. "We kicked ass, wifey. You and me. Power couple of the pit." "Stop calling me that," Zara muttered, but her tail didn't pull away. It slid higher, grazing his ribs, sending a shiver through him. She stopped walking, turning to face him, and her ears twitched, catching the light. "You're bleeding." Jake glanced at his arm, where Zargitha's blade had nicked him. "Just a scratch. Adds to my rugged charm, right?" She rolled her eyes, but her tail curled tighter, brushing his chest now, a slow, deliberate touch that made his breath hitch. "You're impossible," she said, stepping closer. Her hand hovered over his wound, then pressed against it, warm and firm. The essence flared, her strength seeping into him, dulling the sting. "Whoa," Jake said, blinking. "That's nice. You're fixing me up." "Shut up," she snapped, but her tail stayed, tracing lazy circles on his chest. The bond pulsed harder, her annoyance, her pride, and that growing heat he couldn't ignore. She pulled her hand back, but her tail lingered, wrapping around his waist like a claim. Jake smirked, catching her eye. Your tail's getting bold. What's it saying now? Good job, human. It's saying you're a fool, Zara said, but her lips twitched, a tiny, reluctant smile. Her tail squeezed, and the warmth spread, making his head spin. But you fought well. For a weakling. High praise, Jake teased, stepping closer. Guess I'm growing on you, huh? Her ears flicked, and her tail brushed his hip, a quick, playful nudge. Don't push it, she warned, but the bond told a different story. Her guard was down, just a crack, and Jake felt it like a victory bigger than the pit. The heat wasn't just the fight anymore. It was them, tangled in ash and triumph, and Jake wasn't sure where it'd lead next. The ash pit faded into the background as Zara dragged Jake through Rylothar's cliffside city, her tail still coiled around his waist like a leash he didn't mind. The crowd's cheers lingered in the air, but Vrothar's voice cut through as he approached, his massive frame casting a shadow over them. His tail swayed slow and deliberate, his golden eyes flicking between Jake and Zara with a look that wasn't quite hate anymore, more like grudging tolerance. You've proven your bond, Rylothar said, his voice a low rumble. Honor is restored. Zargith is shamed. The clan accepts you, barely. Barely's my specialty, Jake grinned, wiping ash from his face. Thanks, big guy. Nice working with you. Vrothar's tail tapped the ground, a faint smirk tugging his lips. You're still weak, human, but scrappy. I'll give you that. He turned to Zara. He's yours now. Don't shame me again. Zara's ears twitched, and her tail squeezed Jake's waist. A quick, warm pulse through the essence of unity. I'll manage, she said, her tone dry, but Jake caught the flicker in her eyes. Relief, maybe even pride. There's one last thing, Rylothar added, his tail rising. The Rylothian honeymoon. A hunt. Prove your unity against the Void Stalker. Tomorrow. Honeymoon. Jake perked up, his grin widening. Now we're talking. What's a Void Stalker? Beach monster? Space crab? I'm picturing sand, drinks, maybe a little. It's a predator, Zara cut in, her tail smacking his leg. 10 feet tall. Claws. Tentacles. Deadly. Not a vacation. Jake's grin faltered. Oh, right. Alien marriage stuff. Got it. He glanced at Rylothar. No chance we can skip to the drinks part. Vrothar's tail cracked the stone, and he walked off without a word. Jake sighed, leaning on Zara. Your dad's a real party animal. Shut up, she muttered, but her tail stayed, brushing his hip as she led him away. The bond hummed, her exhaustion, her strength, and that heat still simmering between them. Jake wasn't sure if it was the essence or just them, but he wasn't complaining. The next morning, they were shipped off to a desolate moon-orbiting Rylothar, a gray, rocky wasteland dotted with glowing crystal spires and swirling dust storms. Zara piloted the shuttle, her tail coiled around her seat, while Jake lounged in the back, clutching a salvaged flask of stellar moonshine he'd begged from a guard. He'd packed light, his torn jacket, the flask, and a pair of shorts he'd found, hoping for at least 5 minutes of honeymoon vibes before the monster part kicked in. So, he said, kicking his feet up, this Void Stalker. How bad are we talking? Like run and hide bad, or oh shit, we're dead bad? Zara didn't turn. It's fast, strong, hides in the dust. We kill it together, or it kills us. Together, Jake echoed, smirking. Love that word. We're getting good at it. Her tail flicked, brushing his leg from across the shuttle, and the essence sparked, a mix of her focus and a tiny, reluctant amusement. Don't get cocky, she said. You barely survived Zargith. Barely's my brand, Jake replied, taking a swig. Besides, I've got you. My badass alien wife with the killer tail. Stop calling me that, she snapped, but her tail nudged him again, softer this time. Jake grinned, feeling the bond warm up. She wasn't fighting it as hard anymore. The shuttle landed with a thud, and they stepped out into the moon's eerie glow. The air was thin, dry, and cold, the ground crunching under Jake's boots. Zara carried her spear, her red skin stark against the gray, her tail swaying like a censer. Jake followed, flask in one hand, a borrowed Rylothian dagger in the other, small, sharp, and probably useless, but made him feel less naked. Keep up, Zara said, scanning the horizon. It'll smell us soon. Smell me, you mean? Jake said, sniffing his jacket. I'm a walking booze beacon. He paused, squinting at the dust. Wait, is that? A roar split the air, deep and guttural, and the ground shook. The void stalker burst from the dust, a towering nightmare of claws, tentacles, and glowing eyes, its hide black and jagged like volcanic glass. Jake froze. Holy shit, that's no crab. Move, Zara yelled, her tail yanking his arm. The beast charged, tentacles whipping, and they dove apart, rolling through the dust. Jake scrambled up, coughing, as a claw swiped at him, missing by inches. Okay, plan, he shouted, ducking another swing. You stab, I scream? Shut up and run. Zara snapped, leaping at the stalker. Her spear stabbed its side, drawing a screech, but a tentacle slammed her back, sending her sprawling. Jake felt the hit through the essence, sharp, jarring, and bolted toward her without thinking. Zara, he yelled, skidding to her side. Her tail wrapped around his leg, pulling him close, and she pushed up, panting. I'm fine, she growled, blood trickling from her lip. Distracted. On it, Jake said, waving his dagger. Hey, ugly. Over here. He chucked the flask, and it shattered against the stalker's face, splashing moonshine everywhere. The beast roared, shaking its head, and Jake grinned. Scrappy strikes again. Zara charged, her spear stabbing deep into its flank. The stalker thrashed, tentacles flailing, and Jake dodged, grabbing a crystal shard from the ground. Catch! He yelled, hurling it into its eye. It screeched, stumbling, and Zara leapt, driving her spear through its neck. The beast collapsed, dust billowing, and Jake hooped, pumping a fist. Yes! Teamwork, baby! Zara landed beside him, panting, her tail brushing his chest. You're a fool, she said, but her voice was softer and the bond flared. Her relief, her pride, and that heat again, stronger now. Yeah, but I'm your fool. Jake grinned, wiping dust from his face. Her tail curled around his waist, warm and steady, and they stood there, catching their breath as the dust settled. Then the ground shifted, a sinkhole opening beneath them. Jake yelped, grabbing Zara as they fell, tumbling into a glowing cave below. They landed hard, tangled together, ash and crystal dust raining down. Jake groaned, sprawled on his back, Zara half on top of him, her tail pinning his legs. Ow, he muttered, blinking up at her. Nice honeymoon spot. Shut up, she said, but her tail didn't move. It slid up his chest, slow and deliberate, the essence pulsing hot and wild. Her red face hovered over his, golden eyes softening, and Jake felt it, her guard dropping, her warmth flooding through. He said, voice shaky. Your tail's doing that thing again. Blame the bond, she murmured, her hand brushing his cheek. Her tail curled tighter, pressing against his ribs, and the cave's glow lit her skin like fire. Jake smirked, heart racing. So, honeymoon rules? We're stuck here, might as well. She cut him off, leaning down, her lips brushing his, a quick, fierce kiss that hit him harder than the stalker ever could. Her tail squeezed, the essence exploding with her heat, and Jake kissed back, scrappy and eager, his hands finding her waist. They pulled apart, breathless, and Zara glared, but her tail stayed, wrapping him close. Don't get used to it, she warned, her voice husky. Too late. Jake grinned, feeling the bond settle, solid, real, and theirs. Guess I'm stuck with you, wifey. Her tail smacked his chest, but she smiled, a real one this time. And I'm stuck with you, human. The cave glowed around them. The hunt won, the bond sealed, and Jake figured crashing that wedding was the best dumb move he'd ever made.